What if I told you there was a slightly different way to play Nilou? That's what I'm here to tell you all about today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Now, we all know that Nilou is meant to be played as a powerful Bountiful Cores enabler. This much is true. However, might I interest you in the wonderful world of Crit Vape Nilou? Quick disclaimer, no, this team is not meta by any means, and is honestly not that good. I don't recommend it if you're trying to play for meta, but if you're somebody that hates how she's restricted to Bloom only, and feels like rules are made to be broken, then Vape Nilou is the right team for you. There's two different forms of it. First, the international version, where you stick Nilou at the front of your team as the Hydro driver. Main issue here is that swirling Hydro is going to be a menace, since it's literally impossible to do in this team, but the Pyro application will be very neat and consistent. Then the Burn Vape team. Nilou, Xiangling, Nahida, and Zhongli will comprise this team. If you get the Abyss card, which restores 30% HP for every burst you cast, then you can replace Zhongli with Farina for a lot more damage, but that's heckin' situational. Though this team itself is mostly a joke, so thought it to be worth mentioning. Though if you want to run these teams, you're gonna need the adorable Nilou herself, who just so happens to be on banners right now. Now where can I get cheaper Primo Gems to afford her? That's where Loot Bar comes in. Loot Bar is a fantastic service which cuts the cost of Primo Gems and Stellar Jades compared to the original prices as shown in-game. With 5% off for new users, it saves up to 20% compared to the official channel. Loot Bar is very safe and has received a lot of good reviews. Is this legit? How do they do this? Well, allow me to demonstrate. You need no login information whatsoever, just your UID. Go ahead and input that after choosing your desired package. Pay safely, and then voila. Take a look at this price comparison between the official cost and the Loot Bar cost. This is perfectly legitimate as the site uses a VPN to provide you for cheaper Primo Gems and official top-up methods are used. Try out Loot Bar today to save on all your gacha needs. How do these teams operate, you may ask? Simple. I'll start with the Burn Vape variant because it's stronger. Xiangling is there to apply Pyro in a wide AoE consistently while not being locked into a small circular area. Also, she can contribute some of her own neat sub-DPS. Nahida helps apply burning to the enemies, which keeps strong Pyro application on them for a very long time. She can also share her EM to Nilou when she's on fielding to boost up her vapes. The reason why you use Zhongli over Kazuha here is because you aren't going to be swirling Hydro without doing some awkward tricks that'll just result in being a DPS loss anyway. Using Zhongli means that you can guarantee a universal 20% res shred while also protecting Nilou from interruption beautifully. Farina gives a crap ton of damage bonus percent, so she's obviously here to boost up Nilou's vapes. Though do note that, like I said, typically this is gonna be fairly inconsistent and not worth your time unless you have healing cards at your disposal. You may be ripping your hair out at this stage asking about why I haven't covered Bennett yet then, but we'll be getting onto that soon, don't you worry. The internet variant isn't as good because Nahida gives Nilou quite a lot of EM and Bennett doesn't do much to serve Nilou here. Kazuha isn't going to be swirling Hydro very comfortably here either, and both him and Bennett's circles are going to be fairly restrictive in terms of movement, since Kazuha's keeping a lot of Pyro up with his Burst Swirl Circle's Pyro priority. This team will still work if you're interested in clowning around, but this mischievous act won't be as Genshin impactful as Burn Vape's nefarious deeds. I will cover some alternative options and how to build them in a sec, but first, let's get the builds of both regular Burn Vape and Nilou National out of the way. We'll go back to front. Zhongli and Farina should run Favonius. This is because Xiangling is going to be a solo Pyro but seriously needs the ER, and the team's AoE Pyro application depends on her. Triple HP on Zhongli should be enough to keep his shield meaty enough for floor 12. I don't recommend sub-DPS Zhongli since his burst animation takes a bit of a hot minute to cast. And as for Farina, if you're C2+ and especially C4, then use Splendor if you have it, otherwise Favonius' White Particle Gen will really help with Xiangling. Xiangling herself just needs as much ER as possible. I know you might be eyeing the 4-piece burning set, but I'd still go for 4-piece emblem since the 2-piece provides you so much ER. Go for an ER percent stance and a Favonius lance. I recommend Favonius over Catch because while the fishing pole does have roughly 15% more ER on it, Favonius' white particles are better for the whole team. Just go all in on ER. That Xiangling build carries over to the internet variant. While she will do more damage here since she's paired with Bennett and Kazuha, the main deal is still bursting a lot for Pyro application. Kazuha just builds the usual 4-piece Viridescent Venerer with an Energy Recharge or Elemental Mastery weapon of some kind. Favonius or a highly refined Zephos' Moonlight will be best thanks to the ER that they provide the team, which in this case would be Favonius' White Particles, and Zephos' team-wide ER increase based on the equipping character's EM. So I'd just say make sure your Kazuha's got high enough EM for all that ER. Then for Nilou herself, this gets quite funky, which is why I wanted to give the dancer herself her own dedicated section. Your main stats change from triple HP to HP Hydro Crit, a much more traditional format. Nilou will still have very high HP. When it comes to artifact sets, you have a few goofy options. 2 pieces from Hydro, HP percent, EM, and skill percent all work. HP percent is still really good because even if you're not working to cap out Nilou's A4, her abilities themselves still scale off of HP percent, and so will her Vaporizes. EM is for the vape power, of course, and Hydro percent for her own damage numbers. And now allow me to not only explain skill percent, but 4-piece Golden Troop. Nilou's skill-based normals are the same as Ayato's skill normals or Child's skill normals, or even Raiden's burst slashes. The scalings are within the ability itself, therefore her hits literally do benefit from skill percent buffs. I went over in my Navia guide how even if you can't unlock the full 70% skill percent from the second half of the passive, you still get 45% from both the 2-piece and the first half of the 4-piece. It's not that this is a very good set to use compared to 2-piece, some things never do change after all, but it's still a silly fun fact to take note of. But if you're running Farina, 4-piece Mayonnaise Hunters of course works. 36% free crit rate, nice. But keep in mind that since skill percent works, the 2-piece's normal percent does not work in turn. So you'll only be using it for the crit rate in the end, which is fine since that's this set's main gimmick. By extension, don't bother with 4-piece Heart of Depth. The buff won't work. Gilded Dreams will give you 150 EM, 100 if running Farina, so you get a good amount of free stats from the 4-piece. Bump either of those numbers up by plus 80 to include the 2-piece effect. Actually fairly worth your time when a vape Nilou. Nymph's Dream's attack is gonna be literally worthless on Nilou, even in vape, but the Hydro bonus percent is pretty alright. I prefer the other options over this, but if you always wanted a place to use some of your unwanted Nymphs pieces, then here you go lad, one fresh meme team coming right up. In any case, 2-piece sets will be equally as strong, if not better than most of these 4-pieces. I personally wouldn't recommend wasting a bunch of resin on a meme team that you'll probably only play a few times, but ultimately the choice is yours and you may have a few of these lying around anyways. Key is pretty funny since even when building Nilou on HDC, HP percent Hydro Crit, you still get a lot of EM from the weapon's HP to EM conversion passive. And since Nilou scales on HP, you can look at Key's massive HP percent stick as an equivalent to a lot of attack percent on an attack scaling unit. So even for Vape Nilou, you get a ton of stats from Key, making it still her best in slot even when following your meme team dreams. I do want to highlight Jade Cutter though, since the 20% free HP at R1 while providing a ton of crit rate just so happens to be perfect for this particular use case. All of her weapons that I covered in my Nilou guide are still good, and are relevant on her here. In fact, all those EM-based options get to flourish a lot more. The HP percent weapons should be seen as what an attack percent sword is to an attack scaling DPS for instance, and all that EM from many of her 4-star choices will be seriously appreciated. Also, I mentioned how Sacrificial Sword is a niche option for Bloom Nilou teams before, but for Vape Nilou, because she's a solo Hydra that has most of her damage output locked behind a nuclear Vape burst, all that ER from the passive is actually wanted and appreciated here. Give it a spin, not to mention how you can have double the uptime on her normal Hydro attacks. Don't have both states active at once though, since Nilou's Hydro Ring doesn't do damage. You're literally just deleting your Pyro Aura with no extra benefit on top. You should level her skill and burst for this kind of team, especially her burst since the scalings are good, and absolutely leave her normals alone. Her skill does not scale with them whatsoever, so there's no point in leveling them. Level them equally as much, but if you have both at level 8 and want to level 9 to 10 one of them, let's just say Nilou's burst vapes are especially funny. Then for the rotation of these teams, it's worth mentioning how the main goal of Vape Nilou is to vaporize her burst, especially because it has good scalings. First, let's start with Burn Vape. Zhongli's variant is up to start us off. Start with Zhongli's skill, then go for Nihita's skill marks, then burst. Then Xiangling's skill, then her burst. Then Nilou uses her skill, normal attack 3 times, and do that 6 times over. Then end with her burst. Then for the Lady Farina variant. Start with Farina's skill, then go for Farina's burst, then Nihita's skill marks, then burst. Then Xiangling's skill, then her burst. Then Nilou uses her skill, normal attack 3 times, and do that 6 times over, then end with her burst. Then for her vape team. Start with Bennett's skill and then his burst. Group with Kazuha, then use his burst. Do Xiangling's skill and then burst before doing your normals in case you run out of pyro application at the end of your rotation, and then execute all of Nilou's normal attacks. If you nail all that down, then congratulations, you're officially playing Vaporize Nilou, a completely suboptimal team in the most optimal way possible. Also, take a shot every time I said skill or burst. However, I'm sure many of you are chomping at the bit wondering about the alternatives that are available. Bennett can work instead of Xiangling, allowing you to use Farina with Nilou Vape a lot more consistently. However, in turn, your pyro application is a lot worse. Bennett generally restricts you to a circle, and his attack buffs offer nothing of value to Nilou. But he can hold 4-piece instructors, which is pretty neat, and you can run Favonia's sword for a better energy recharge economy, because his base attack won't matter in a team where all the damage dealers are HP scaling. Toma can also work as a pyro applicator since he can prevent interruption and applies pyro while mobile, but that's pretty much it, and his pyro application is nothing to write home about. Also, even though Nilou's normals are within her skill, they still require a normal attack input on your end, therefore Toma's shield is still able to get stronger, which is pretty neat. Sucrose can take over Kazuha in Internet Nilou Vape because of her EM share which Nilou likes, but once again you won't be Hydro Swirling, and 4-piece Viridescent Venerer is the only ever appeal. C2 Kazuha will also negate Sucrose's value entirely, but it's still worth a try if your Kazuha is C0 to 1 or if he's just already in use elsewhere. On the whole, the core of Nilou, Pyro Applicator, Burning, Dendro Sustainer, Buffer, or Shielder should serve you fine. Either that or the basic stick 'em in front of the national team core. Other options, unfortunately, just aren't as noteworthy, but if I forgot anybody who you may be thinking is of note, please let me know down below in the comments, and I'll answer your questions regarding them and their Nilou Vape synergy. It's also worth mentioning how Vape Nilou stops being a joke team at C6. This is because Nilou's nuclear burst does so much damn DPS that it actually becomes worth building vape teams for her, not to mention how the C6 itself asks you to play Crit Nilou. Nilou C6 is honestly surprisingly strong and is a really good speedrunner C6 if you know how to apply it effectively. Longtime viewers or anybody who was around for the Farina saga knows how I'm fascinated by whale-based content, and while I can't really speak much on C6 Nilou because I haven't had much of a chance to play it myself, nor do I own a C6 Nilou, it is a very formidable C6, even after the huge wave of amazing Fontaine C6s that we've seen enter the C6 meta. And it was also worth mentioning here in my opinion, because while I'm framing Vape as mostly a meme team, because, well, from C0 to 5 Nilou, yes it is, there is a realm in which it's unironically preferred over Nilou's Bountiful Cores Bloom team. I'll be watching how well the C6 holds up with great interest throughout the Notlan era, and I'm super curious as to whether other Hydras like Mualani will power creep her C6 badly or not. And for the love of God, no! Don't play Taser! I mean it! Do it if you want to, but why? Nilou's regular Bloom Bountiful Cores playstyle is literally an AoE playstyle, and what is Taser? An AoE team! Vape Crit Nilou is a funny playstyle because it manages to have Nilou achieve something that she regularly does not, and that is being a solid burst nuker, even if it is only momentary. These are all just meme teams at the end of the day, so you can give it a shot if you want to. I'm not saying what you can and can't do, but please don't come my way complaining about how I haven't covered Taser, because that's a deliberate choice on my end. It goes against Nilou's kit, but not even in a funny way, so I don't care about it. Also, there's external things like Kiev Kaj Nisut, which funnily enough managed to help out in Vape, and there's funny techniques with Vape. Taser doesn't really have anything interesting going for it. Now for my thoughts on Crit Nilou. Crit Nilou is stupid, but it's also stupid fun. Genshin Impact is honestly a very simple and easy game once you fully understand all of the mechanics, and sometimes it's nice to test the limits of your skill and knowledge with a stupid meme team featuring a character that's completely breaking the rules of their core kit in the process. Crit Lou, while dumb, is a great team to try if you're really bored of Bloom and want to access a different part of Nilou that you don't typically really use during regular gameplay, that being Nilou's burst. All those neat scalings, essentially wasted on a character that didn't need them. Until now. This team is not meta, and I didn't make this video to sell it as this incredibly crazy hidden gem of a team, rather more just as a way to cover the more unconventional way of playing Nilou that didn't really have a place to fit into when making a more traditional guide on the character and her playstyle. I also partly made this video since I got quite a few comments on my Nilou guide asking about Critlu and how to play her. Really hope this video was able to answer a majority of your questions, and if not, then let me know about the rest of your queries in the comment section. Remember to join my Discord down below, link in both the description and pinned comment. We have cookies. Consider supporting me on Ko-Fi, which will be in both of those places as well, and follow me on Twitter. You know the locational drill by this stage. Hopefully this video was able to tell you about Nilou's most hilarious forbidden team. This has been Juice, signing out, and let me ask you this. What do Ganyu and Nilou both have in common? Horns!